The rhythmic sound of chanting, beating drums, the smell of incense and delicious foods. Now close your eyes and imagine a picturesque lakeside community in the middle of the forest. It was my first time at Lake Mai-Ndombe in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I had found my Wakanda way before Black Panther was a thing. Over the years, I've touched down in countries all across the continent, from Senegal to Gambia, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Kenya, to name a few. And despite the long transatlantic treks from the US, the journey to Africa never felt long. I remember before I was Dr. Ashley Milton, environmental scientist and founder of She Grows It, I thought I knew all about long journeys. The walks down Crenshaw Drive in my hometown of Los Angeles always seemed endless. The tedious days of a grueling master's and PhD program in Washington, D.C. surely would never end. To the time it took my Black girl magic to grow my locks, and certainly the path to creating my own DC-based firm that centers evolutionary economics and environmental diplomacy to enhance the human experience and build communities of the future. I've always understood, though, that the destination matters far less than the path there. And now the journey I'm on is navigating down a path that enables others to take their own. As humans, I know that sometimes we have a tendency to take our own paths, but not all paths or all journeys are made by choice. I derive from a history that forced a path predicated on the belief that African Americans were inherently and genetically inferior to whites, followed by institutional racism, which continues to perpetuate injury in today's society, is only a glimpse of what really goes down in my world. Slavery cannot be removed from my self-identity. It's my virtue of being African American. I must always and forever acknowledge that I am first an African. And multi-generational trauma paired together with continued oppression, absence of opportunity to heal or access the benefits available in society leads to post-traumatic slave syndrome. I remember before I left Los Angeles, California for college, I didn't know how much I was a product of my environment. I left Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, understanding that environmental injustices exist and that they disproportionately affect poor Black people in disenfranchised communities around the United States. I left the American University in Washington, D.C., understanding the laws and policies that govern environmental issues are being made by decision makers unaware of the science of the environment or unwilling to act on behalf of people who look like me. And that these disproportionate environmental conditions were persistent throughout the world and not just in the United States. I left my doctoral program understanding the science of the environment and how it has been used to disconnect, disrupt, and devalue Black lives and experiences globally. And I stand before you today, empowered, educated, and employed to share my message as a transdisciplinary methodologist looking to solve the world's problems of today by inviting everyone to have a seat at the table. I've also learned that you can't tell the story or solve the problem if 2/3 of the people aren't in the room actively contributing to the conversation. And from my experience in the classroom as a student and as a faculty, in courtrooms and in meeting rooms, I oftentimes find my lens, my voice as an African American ecologist is a solitary one. I want to make sure that we all have a voice to sit at the table, and this Black girl was focused on telling that entire story, to make things that seem desperate and unrelated clear and connected, to give power back to the people by uncovering the muddle of who gets what and why. You see, I've set out on a journey, possibly the most significant journey I'll ever take, to create a global vehicle for strategy, development, and lifestyle solutions that create communities of the future, to build resilient communities with smart environmental solutions for economic growth that afford individuals to live free. Freedom can mean many different things to many people, but for the purpose of this talk, I define freedom as the ability of choice, the ability to live, to eat, and to be without exchanging all of your hours for dollars and all of your dollars for clothes, food, gas, data, all of which keep you in a cyclical cycle of, let's just call it the opposite of freedom. And I know that slavery is polarizing, even the use of the word. I debated using it in this talk in order to not trigger people, but in this diaspora story, it was important to mention because it's very much connected to my story and my journey to finding freedom. A magical space where I could live and thrive in place, safely, judged by humanity and not by my color. And as an African American on a quest for freedom across this continent, I must embrace this idea of super Blackness. I realize that my trauma from post-traumatic slave syndrome sometimes inhibits my ability to truly be free. And in those moments, I'm faced with the reality of my disconnection from my homeland. I'm reminded of slavery and its roles, but I'm also empowered by the connections I've made in communities of people who look like me, who speak like me, who dance like me, and who act like me, and for who all intents and purposes are me. The evolution of the diaspora and its ambassadors are 2/3 the size of the United States, and with organized revolutionary thought can make sweeping changes for all safe spaces in the societies that we create with #us in mind. It starts by rejecting nationalism and the rise of the nation state as our identifiers, because the setbacks we are experiencing across political and economic turfs are startling, but they're not unexpected. The statistics always seem to speak to our demise. Black women graduate college with the most student loan debt, yet 12 years after starting, white men have paid off 44%, while Black women owe 13% more. Black women are paid 61 cents to every dollar paid to men, amounting to ridiculously large wage gaps. And Black women, because of our dual victimization by race and sex-based discrimination, coupled with the disproportionate responsibilities we carry for the economic and social welfare of our families, they echo Malcolm's sentiments that the Black woman is the most disrespected person in society. And because we are not free until we all are free, we have to be conscious to what's happening and not constrict ourselves to making other people feel comfortable. We who wear the mask must emerge, because all of our phrasings, race relations, racial chasms, racial justice, white privilege, even white supremacy, it serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience. It dislodges brains, it blocks airways, it rips muscles, extracts organs, cracks bones, breaks teeth. You must never look away from this. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions all land with great violence upon the body. And we can no longer ignore this. Therefore, I embody Africa. I am an African goddess, a queen of kings, a warrior. And my return has greatly increased my quality of life, my outlook, and my perception of my true beauty. I have learned to redefine the perception of Africa through art, through culture, through customs, through food, through business, and most importantly, through my own lens, unabridged by false stories moonlighting as history to keep me from my glory and my destiny. A continent with 54 countries, 1.2 billion people speaking over 2,000 languages, is the richest continent, representing 20% of the Earth's land mass. With all the climates you could wish for, mountains, volcanoes, beaches, scuba diving, motocross, you name it, Africa's got it. And every African throughout the diaspora should have a birthright experience. This means we should all have a connection to home. That could be a visit, a vacation, living, working, or investing at home. Growing up, I would look forward to getting the 64 Crayola box with the sharpener on the back to start my school year. The assortment of colors I thought only existing in this man-made box of crayons I would use to create the spaces I want to live and thrive in. I never imagined that that picture would come to life on the continent of Africa. This land mass is a magical space for new beginnings and lifelong journeys that are self-empowering. The results of that visit, that vacation, that jump to live, work, and invest in Black is a true embodiment of Black Lives Mattering because it feeds your soul in a way like no other. The warmth of the sun, the love of the people, the vibrations of that beating drum talking to and feeding your inner spirit, letting you know that you have finally made it home. So my charge to the diaspora is, will you come? Thank you.